Most people think your Ford just wears out somewhere past 150,000 miles. That belief is wrong, and it's costing owners a fortune in trucks that died decades before they had to. The difference between your Ford dying young and sailing past 500,000 miles comes down to a handful of habits almost nobody follows correctly. Most cost you almost nothing. Let's get into it. Number 10. Ignore the oil life monitor on your EcoBoost. Ford's own intelligent oil life system will often stretch you to 7, 8, even 10,000 miles between changes, sometimes further depending on how the algorithm reads your driving pattern. That number is calibrated as much for advertised low cost of ownership as it is for your engine's actual health, and Ford has openly marketed the extended intervals as a selling point to fleet buyers and regulators alike, not just to you sitting in the driveway. Your EcoBoost runs direct injection, which means fuel can dilute your oil faster than older port-injected engines ever did, thinning it down before that monitor even flags a warning light. By 10,000 miles, oil diluted this way can shear down to something closer to watery sandpaper for your bearings and turbo shaft than actual protection. It happens quietly. No warning light tells you it's already thinning out underneath the number on the dash. Owners who've kept their EcoBoost trucks well past 200,000 miles almost universally ignore the extended interval entirely. They change oil every 5 to 7,500 miles instead, especially if you're doing city driving or short trips that never let your engine fully warm up and burn off that diluted fuel. Number 9. Stop believing your transmission fluid is lifetime. Ford's official interval for the 10-speed automatic sitting in most modern F-150s is a staggering 150,000 miles under normal conditions. Plenty of owners take that number as gospel. Plenty of longtime Ford techs who've actually torn into these transmissions do a drain and filter service every 30 to 60,000 miles instead. Some go even further and do a full pan drop with a magnet check for metal shavings, which tells you far more than a mileage number ever could about what's actually happening inside. A little metal on the magnet early is a warning sign worth catching now, not at 200,000 miles when it's already too late. Sure, some people will tell you shops just want to sell more services, and sometimes that's true, but a $30 filter and a few quarts of fluid is a lot cheaper than a rebuilt transmission, whichever side of that argument you land on. Think of the shorter interval as cheap insurance against a repair that can run into the thousands once a 10-speed actually starts slipping. If you tow with any regularity, that shorter interval isn't optional for you. It's genuinely the difference between a transmission that makes it to 500,000 miles and one that starts shuddering at half that. Number 8. Feed your Ford better gasoline than the cheapest pump in town every time you fill up, not just when it's convenient. Because your EcoBoost sprays fuel directly into the combustion chamber, instead of over the intake valves, there's no gasoline washing those valves clean the way there was on older, simpler engines from decades past. Carbon quietly builds up on the backside of your intake valves over years of driving, layer by layer, completely invisible until it isn't. Nobody pulls a valve cover to check it on a whim. That restricts airflow and causes the rough idle hesitation and lost power you might blame on your engine simply getting old instead of carbon buildup. That was preventable the whole time, one tank of fuel at a time. Top-tier gasoline with stronger detergent additives measurably slows that carbon accumulation compared to bargain brand fuel, and it costs you the exact same price at the pump. Same island, same price, better protection. Number 7. Let a hard-driven turbo cool down before you shut your engine off completely. Your turbocharger spins at over 100,000 RPM at full boost and runs brutally hot after towing, hard highway miles, or a long mountain climb with a loaded bed. That heat doesn't disappear the instant you take your foot off the gas. Shutting the engine off immediately after that kind of heat traps residual oil, sitting right against superheated turbo bearings, with no circulation left to carry the heat away. It cooks that trapped oil into hard varnish deposits that eventually starve the shaft of proper lubrication, one heat cycle at a time. This happens slowly. Nobody notices it happening until the turbo's already whining or leaking oil into the intake. 30 seconds of idle after a hard pull is free insurance. Just let the turbo shed some heat before you kill the engine. That alone guards against a turbo failure that is genuinely not cheap for you to fix later. Number 6. Use the correct coolant in your Ford every single time with no exceptions. Ford specifies particular motorcraft formulations for different engine families, and they aren't interchangeable the way most people assume coolant is. even though they're often similar colors sitting on the same shelf. Mixing an incompatible type into your system can cause real damage. Even just topping off with whatever's on sale at the parts store because you're in a hurry. It can cause the coolant to gel or turn corrosive inside passages it was never designed to protect. That quiet corrosion eats away at your water pump, your heater core, and your aluminum cylinder heads from the inside, one heat cycle at a time. It happens years before you'd ever notice a leak on your driveway, and by the time you do, it's already an expensive repair instead of a $5 jug of the right fluid bought at the right moment. Number 5. Don't let a wet belt engine run on old oil, ever. Some of your smaller EcoBoost engines use a timing belt that actually runs fully submerged in engine oil. That includes the 1.5 liter found in several Ford models. It's nothing like a traditional dry rubber belt out front. When oil sits too long and starts to break down chemically, that belt can shred apart inside the engine. The debris gets pulled straight into your oil pickup screen, threatening total engine failure all at once instead of a gradual warning you'd have time to react to. On these specific engines, staying ahead of your oil changes isn't just about wearing slower over time. You're actively protecting a belt that most owners don't even know exists under there, buried deep in the front cover. Number 4. Get your transmission fluid actually looked at, not just guessed at by mileage alone. A basic fluid sample sent for analysis can show whether your specific truck's fluid still has protective life left in it. It costs relatively little, usually less than an oil change. And it tells you far more than an odometer reading ever could about what's actually happening inside your transmission. Right now, today, not in some average scenario from a lab. 2 trucks with identical mileage can have wildly different fluid condition underneath. One driven gently on the highway, one used for stop-and-go towing every week, both showing the exact same number on the dash. Guessing by mileage alone treats your truck the same as every other one on the road. The actual wear happening underneath never is the same, no matter what the manual says. Number 3. Rotate your tires on a real schedule, not whenever you remember to ask about it at the counter. Uneven tire wear from skipped rotations quietly throws off your wheel bearing load. It changes your steering geometry too slowly, over tens of thousands of miles without you noticing day to day behind the wheel. You won't feel it happening. That's exactly the problem. That wears components that are genuinely expensive to replace a wheel bearing or a set of tie rods, and completely free to prevent with 15 minutes of shop time. Every oil change is a built-in reminder to check it. It costs you nothing but a few extra minutes if you're already at the shop for something else that day anyway. Number 2. Address small rust on your Ford the year it appears, not 5 years later when it's obvious. Road salt and moisture work into your wheel wells, frame rails, and rocker panels long before a hole ever actually shows up on the surface where you can see it. By the time rust is visible, it's already eaten well beyond what you can see with your own eyes, spreading underneath the paint. A small treated spot costs you almost nothing, sometimes just a can of rust converter and an afternoon in the driveway with a wire brush. A quick undercarriage rinse after winter driving, getting the salt out of those wheel wells before it sits there for months, does more for your Ford's long-term structure than almost anything else on this list, and it takes 5 minutes at a self-serve wash. The same spot, ignored for years, can turn into a frame repair that costs more than your truck is even worth on paper. Number 1. And this is the habit that ties every other one together. Keep every single receipt and record forever, even for the boring stuff like a $50 oil change or a set of wiper blades. A documented maintenance history is the single strongest piece of evidence a mechanic will ever ask you for when something goes wrong. A warranty claim wants it too in writing, dated and itemized. So does a future buyer if you ever decide to sell your truck down the road. It's the difference between a truck that's provably been cared for and one that's just claimed to have been, with nothing to back it up. Owners who actually reach 500,000 miles can usually produce a folder without thinking twice. Every service, every date, every receipt, going back years. The ones who can't explain why their truck started falling apart either. One honest bonus before we bring this together. Spark plugs on your EcoBoost are rated anywhere from 60 to 100,000 miles depending on the exact engine. That sounds like a long runway, but turbocharged engines punish plugs harder than naturally aspirated ones ever did, running hotter combustion temperatures cycle after cycle. A fouled plug quietly steals power and fuel economy long before it throws an actual misfire code you'd notice on the dash. Pull one and look at it around the halfway point of that interval instead. Don't wait for a warning light to tell you something's already gone wrong under the hood. So, let's bring it all together. Everything that actually matters here. Real oil intervals over the monitor's suggestion. Real transmission fluid changes over lifetime marketing. Better fuel, a cooled-down turbo, correct coolant, protected wet belts, tested fluid, rotated tires, early rust treatment, healthy spark plugs, and a paper trail for all of it. None of these cost you much. All of them are the actual difference between your Ford dying at half its potential and just quietly outliving everyone's expectations, yours included. If this changed how you'll treat your next oil change, do me a favor and subscribe, and drop a comment telling me your Ford's current mileage right now.